Just wanted to introduce her to everyone. Thank you, Janicki. Are we ready?
We're ready.
Okay. My first question. I understand that you were actually ordained many years ago, but left. Um, what, who or what brought you to the ministry way back then in the beginning?
Shirley Catanzaro, my good friend. We met in Washington, D.C., even though we both lived in Arizona. We both felt called to go to Washington, D.C. to meet with Marianne Williamson and Dennis Kucinich to learn how to lobby to create a cabinet level Department of Peace. And then we came back from that venture and started the Arizona Department of Peace. There were 5 women, and that's when I got to know Shirley and started working with Shirley. Um, and she introduced me to the Madonna ministry.
Is that when you started teaching the awakening
No,
with her
that came
too? Was that
later.
later? That
That
was
came
later.
later.
Okay. Um, were you able to maintain some kind of ministry all those years, or did you get distracted by life and
Well,
just let things go?
that's a two-pronged answer. So I did let it go formally. Um, the practice, I didn't really ever get fully engaged. And we can make a note to come back to that later about some insight about mentorship with new ministers that come on board. So life did lead me astray, but internally, ever since I was a young child, I've always felt called on a spiritual path and have always felt that our fellow, we are to be of service. I am to be of service to my fellow human being, my fellow brothers and sisters. I didn't know exactly what that looked like because that thought process was so dramatically different than anybody in my family and growing up in New York City. The closest I could come to were Catholic priests and nuns who visited us on occasion on the holidays because my father was a big mucky muck in the Catholic Archdiocese of Newark, New Jersey. And so we occasionally had priests and nuns come spend holidays with us. And so when I was very young, I wanted to be a priest, and I was told that I couldn't because I was a girl. And so I was heartbroken. so, so I had a lot of learning to do, a lot of hard lessons as a young person as to because I didn't really have role models per se, other than Jesus in catechism. I was very fascinated with the idea and the life of Jesus, and so I think in my heart of hearts, I really just wanted to be more of an example. But it was very challenging because the pulls, of the ego and life and people, circumstances, romances, jobs, titles, relationships, all of that just really. I really went wayward, went deep, but I learned a lot of very valuable lessons about, uh, I guess, truth, my truth of what is real, not possessions. And so I started a life path of minimizing, and really, from the age of 25 to 30, I took 5 years. I moved out of New York, went to Phoenix, Arizona, and I really just worked really, really exceptionally hard on going deep on a spiritual path to learn as much as I could about different spiritual modalities. And came to the conclusion that all of them have the golden rule in some way, shape, or form. And I wanted to, or I decided that that was really the essence of any spiritual path was the golden rule. Just treat people and life the way I would want to be treated, with kindness. And yeah, so that's kind of how it started me. And from that, living life intentionally and through study is when I started to really draw uh, spiritual masters into my life, like Shirley, um, as you all know, is a shaman and very gifted and natural, one of the most natural, beautiful spiritual beings I'd ever met. And so when I started drawing people like that into my life, it really exponentially upped my growth quite a bit. And I just feel like I need to find a platform to share my compassion and empathy and wisdom with other people if they're open to it.
Great. Thank you. And I'm going on an assumption that it was Shirley who got you back in the ministry this time.
Yes, that's correct. Yes. When we
And
had reconnected and she had asked me about it, and I said, oh, I had recently been thinking about that, and I had some confusion about the Madonna ministry, the split, because when I went online to look about how to get re-engaged, it was a little confusing to me. And so Shirley cleared that up for me and told me which direction she had chosen and why, gracefully and lovingly. And so I said, well, that's where I want to be again. So
great. And we're glad you're back.
Yeah,
thank
welcome
you.
back.
Um, so what differences, if any, um, is your ministry now or going to be now as opposed to when you first became a minister many years ago? Or is there a difference?
Yeah, there's a difference. Maturity is going to be the biggest difference, is having a better understanding of myself, of the ministry in particular, although I definitely still feel quite the novice, and I'm still trying to study not trying, I am looking at the YouTube videos for the history and getting a really stronger sense of embodying the Madonna ministry. So the difference would be simply just maturity, and realizing that every day everybody is or could choose to be a minister of some sort to their fellow human being and to the planet and animals. The Madonna ministry is just a much like Katrina talked about with regard to magic. The Madonna ministry is a tool for me to utilize as part of on my vessel to share, or just to show up for my fellow human. I always hesitate because, as most of you know, I'm also quite the animal advocate, and so I don't like to necessarily exclude them, but I don't want to sound like I'm keep bringing it up in people's faces. But I'll just put it out there once, when I use humanity, all living things, to live a life that shows regard for all living things.
Great. So now that you're back, what sort of goals do you have for yourself to be back in the ministry?
The biggest one, I think I had shared briefly with people, and I'll keep it brief too, because I'm still fleshing it out. The biggest one that I feel called to do is to build a tiny home or two, probably two, and invite a hospice person who is near end of life, anywhere from 3, 6 months to a year, and to come out into the desert and create sort of a desert botanical garden and maybe some rescue animals, and have someone who doesn't have family or is estranged from family and doesn't want to die in a sterile environment or home, to come out and just to be loved on and offer healing modalities, not necessarily to heal them from dying necessarily, but I certainly anticipate that we may experience some miracles. But I just don't think people need to die alone, and certainly not in a setting that's sterile, just is what it feels like to me. Even a hospital setting or something with so much activity and frenetic energy going on around you. I think a person should be guided out peacefully and lovingly, and that's what I'm going to focus on now, is doing that and fleshing that out.
That's wonderful. Great. What a
Wow.
great goal. Yeah. And you're going to do that on the land you just purchased?
So I do have room for it. I have to look at the designation, the zoning, and also I have to consider my neighbors.
Ah,
Um, um, but as it turns out, being a real estate agent, I do have a client that I've sold some of her other properties, and she's got one left. It's a 40-acre parcel, and it abuts a small mountain. And on that mountain um, is a cascade of quartz crystal that flows down like a riverbed down the whole from the top all the way down the mountain all the way into a wash. And I just had goosebumps, and the hairs just stood on my arms, and I really felt called that was to be the property. And I brought it up to her, and she was open to working with me to acquire that um, property.
wow.
Ideally, that's what I would like to do, because if there'd be so much more room, and privacy, obviously. But
Yeah.
I'll just put it out to the universe, and the universe and God will talk to me and guide me as I go along.
And I'm sure the quartz crystals will help with the healing and the transition for those
And the
people.
transition, that's what I figured too. Very grounding in the
Yeah,
transition.
just water and crystals. Oh, great combination. Sounds beautiful. Um, what if anything at this point in time do you need from us as a ministry, us as your friends?
Okay. I think so from my experience would be like I said, the thing that comes to mind would be having someone, I don't know who, I don't feel like it should be something that I choose as much as I get chosen, per se. If someone felt called to a mentorship, to walk through the process of really understanding what being a Madonna minister is, what that looks like, and being part of that committee is helpful. That we just had the other day with the 3 levels, which was very helpful, and really getting a deeper dive into being able to do ceremonies and just being active, I guess, and how to do that. I'm not sure what that looks like, but the word that comes to mind is mentorship. And for what period of time, I don't know, maybe a couple of months, perhaps.
Or however long it takes.
Right.
Leave that to the universe. Um, what?
You have been on this trail for a long time. When
Mm-hmm.
I first met you, that's what you were looking for. You were looking for something that you could put yourself in, that you felt good with, and that you could help. And those days, I mean, we did everything in those days. We tried to get everybody. We made the classes. You were there all the time with all the classes we did. Everything we did was towards that end. As much
Mm-hmm.
as it was helping the people that we were giving the class to, it did help each one of us to open up another door within us and to
Mm-hmm.
step into it, no matter how, if we have fears or whatever it is. And you have done this journey. And as I look at you today, I mean, I have tears when I first saw you this morning because our road has been connected back here, over there, around
Mm-hmm.
the table, up in the sky, around the earth. But here we are again into the oneness of connecting and helping others, people connect into the oneness of who they are.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm so happy that here you are. Oh,
Yep.
oh, and you have a cat. Well, that's the best thing. There you go.
Good
So,
company you keep.
but your
Yes.
smile is beautiful. And every time I look at you, what a journey we have been on. And here we are back again together. So, welcome.
Thank you. Yes, it's been a wonderful journey for sure of moving forward, stepping back, going sideways, coming,
Yeah.
moving forward again. Shirley and I, in my life, Shirley has been part of some of the more magical moments of my life of really deep connection of going to Washington, D.C. Like I said, was albeit political of sorts, it was bringing our spiritual knowledge into the political arena that we saw people that were in dire opposition of creating a cabinet level Department of Peace willing to listen and at the end of the conversation really come around and have an open mind because Shirley was very instrumental in creating the bringing them back to the awareness that we are all connected and that we all want the same thing. We may not agree on which way to get there. And so I wasn't sure what my role in that would be. So I basically just stayed in the circle, stayed back, and I I listened. I actively listened to what people were saying, and I realized that the people that I was there with were very attached um, emotionally to creating this cabinet level Department of Peace, and as such, their message to the representative was at times heated and impassioned, and they were, I felt, losing their audience because of the emotional attachment that they were throwing out there. And so, as I observed this after the first meeting with the congressional representative, at the second meeting, I decided that I was just going to listen, and at the end, tried to summarize what both sides were saying to create uh, understanding, I guess you would say. And what ended up happening is I gave an example that I remember to this day. It's kind of corny, but it was useful. And I used the example. I said, look, here we are showing up, we, the people that want the cabinet level Department of Peace, hypothetically, we're showing up in a 1960 something VW Love Bug, and you can't stand it. And this is, the late 90s, and you want, an Escalade Cadillac, all the bells and whistles, and you don't want anything to do with it. And we really don't agree with the Escalade. So what if we disassembled both vehicles and rebuilt a vehicle together based on your needs and our needs? And the energy in the room just changed. I didn't know at the time. I felt called to say that, but I didn't know how it would be received. And it was kind of an aha moment. And for me, as well, as I recognized very clearly how important active listening is, removing the ego and just speaking from a place of active listening, and not trying to elicit a response, or not trying to look smart, or not trying any of that. Just remove all of that and just speak. And then after that, I don't know, Shirley, if you remember, but I think you were the one that gave me the nickname, the summator, the person who at the end of the meeting summarizes the meetings so that people really could feel more connected. And so at that point, I realized that I had a skill that was going to be very useful in my life, and every job career that I've had. It has been very, very beneficial and useful. And just going forward from there, with that awareness that love is the only, that was the other thing, was that coming away from that, I realized that the agape love, that was the word I was looking for, agape love, was really what the aim at the end of the day in my life is to achieve that. And when I operate from that all-knowingness, agape love, that love is all there is, it's amazing the people, places, and things that come into my life that just really make no sense. I'll give you a quick example of what I mean. So when I felt called to go to Washington that first time, I was working for the airlines, America West Airlines. I didn't have savings. I had no money to get there. I had no means to get there. I didn't know anybody there. And I started talking about it a lot, and I knew that I felt called to go. So I contacted the conference people. They were willing to give me a discount, a student discount. So I think it was $75 to go there, which was still a lot for me then. But I said, okay, I think I can save that. And then I started talking about it to other people with excitement. I was putting life into it. And a friend, an acquaintance of mine that I ran into, she said, oh, my sister lives in Washington. I bet you she would let you stay on her couch. And I was like, what? I said, okay. Well, and then of course I had another, you know what? At the time I wasn't working for America West Airlines. I had previously. So I ran into another friend who was still working for them, and she was a stewardess, and they had those buddy passes at the time. So she gave me a buddy pass, and that's how I
Yeah.
got there. And I knew
Wow.
that was magical, that I was supposed to go there. And of course, the Shirley and Terry Mansfield and Joyce Bukers and the couple of other women that we met there, we came back and we did some really formative work. We did public speaking about inner peace, that this world we won't ever create a cabinet level Department of Peace unless we're at peace within ourselves as individuals. And so I would go to speak to Rotary clubs. So Shirley and I would go and speak to Rotary clubs and schools and really talk about the importance of being at peace with oneself, beginning with our thoughts, because we had acquaintances that also were anti-war people, but we believed that we didn't want to be anti anything. We want to stand up for things, but we felt that the energy of anti something was kind of not working. It's almost an oxymoron in a way, not to do that. But our ultimate goal, obviously, was to be a country that doesn't go to war. But I felt coming from the top down was not going to be the answer. We have to come from the individuals up who make those decisions. And so that was that, like I said, that was a very magical time in my life. And I'm now looking to get back to advocating for sure, re-engaging.
I love you.
And that leads to my last question. What do you feel that you're able to contribute to the ministry now that you perhaps couldn't in the past?
Well, I'm more active now, so behind the scenes. So I'm more active now. So I think that I pride myself on being a critical thinker. I'm not the sharpest tack in anybody's shed, but I certainly do. I am an idea person, and through my active listening, sometimes when people are communicating, they're missing their own point, and sometimes I can help people sharpen their point. Um, so I think at this time I'm physically showing up in a way that I didn't prior, and I think a lot of that is timing in life and maturity.
I agree. And when we were talking earlier about the awakening process, you had a wonderful thought, which I think is wonderful, about once we've started teaching it again, providing a Zoom group as a follow-up, like every 2 weeks or every month, as a support, because and I agree, those of us who took it, which is I think Sally, Laura, and me, we took it from Shirley. Yeah, it sort of fell apart. So can you address that a little bit more for the
Sure,
rest of them?
sure. So it's been my experience, and I'm sure many others through the years, that anytime that I've taken a self-help inspirational weekend, done a large group gathering, you get really amped up, and it's very transformative, very powerful and transformative. The issue is there's no follow up, there's no support after the weeks and months and years afterwards to maintain, because most of us are individual warriors looking for camaraderie and communion and connectivity, and we get that, but then we go back to our lives with the same people who maybe are not on board or at the same place that we are in the same at the same place that we are at the same time. And it's very easy to get lulled back into our habits and our ways of being. Um, and so we recognize this in Phoenix with the women, that they were really quite moved to change, but we didn't have a system in place after they got through the whole process. We didn't have a system in place to support them, and so they just went back to their abusive relationships or their troubled children, whatever that angst was that we were helping them with, and they just get consumed by it again. So I had, back in the day, it was Yahoo had Yahoo groups, and so I had started for them, women, and the thing was that one of the women had to take the leadership role in it. I was just setting up the Yahoo group. I set it up for them, and they could support one another after that. So I think that that's a missing key for anything, is follow up, is just we have to keep that momentum going for ourselves and for other people.
Terrific. Um, to get back to something you alluded to, your insight for mentorship for the new ministers, priests, bishops, whatever. What was that insight? If you share it with us.
Oh, so I guess just basically to expound on the mentorship is having a buddy that really just gets to know you and gets to help the new person become immersed, so that they can show up in their highest and best for themselves and also for the Madonna ministry. I have a question along those lines. Where has the membership gone? Like, what is the insight from you guys? Like, where is the membership gone that it's dwindled so dramatically? And this, I think, would be one of the things that might help embolden membership is if we took an active role in when somebody comes on board, is embracing them, not overwhelming them, but embracing them and asking them what their specific needs are to become immersed in and be an active member of the Madonna ministry.
Sally, do you have an answer for that?
Yeah, I'd
Well,
like to. I can address it. Maybe,
Okay.
sort of, kinda. Um, the thing that we're always looking for is within ourselves, and so I'm willing to be a mentor, for instance, for Caitlin. But I know the mentor is within herself, and like Shirley was teaching us or showing us, that's where we first need to look. But that doesn't mean we should have an absence of a buddy system, kind of like the Alcoholics Anonymous.
Mm-hmm.
When somebody's like needing help or maybe losing their way, they should be able to turn to a buddy. And it's a great idea. And in times we have done that. Usually, the bishop was the center of influence, so to speak, and they're the ones that maybe have brought certain people in to the group. So the mentor usually would have been the bishop. But I've got a question to ask of you, Caitlin. In the write-up, it said on your dark side there was silence. What did you mean by that?
On my dark side, there was silence.
Yeah, it said on the write-up that when you initiate or get into
Project
your
here.
dark side,
Yeah,
there's
let me share with Caitlin. She may not have seen the newsletter. So
Mm-hmm.
what I wrote for you, I pulled a photograph from your Facebook page
Yeah.
about your hippie name. And so they had these are the different things that your hippie name means. And so that's what Charlie's referring to. Let
Okay.
me see if I can share that in the chat. Hold on a second.
When I got into the Madonna ministry, it was Charlie's voice and Charlie's, I don't know, his just the feeling that he sent out from who he was. It was almost like, oh my gosh, yeah, I'm being born again. I'm being giving an opportunity to continue the dreams that I had along with what is there. And that is why I had joined the Madonna ministry. It was like I was going back home and starting over, but starting over in a different way. And it felt good to be able to voice the feelings I had as much as to do the work of it also. So the Madonna ministry has been in my life for many years. And I'm sure it'll be on for many more. And I think all of us that have been part of it has stepped out into our own view of life and we've tried to help others. But we keep coming back here because we want to get more to share out there because we know it works. So that's my idea, Charlie. And I love you for coming into my life.
You are a love yourself, and so thank you. But what you're bringing up, Shirley, and I think what Caitlin's really bringing up is the mentorship really is within ourselves. And All of our endeavors and our different ceremonies are designed in such a way to celebrate the life of God within the person. And when that person is more in tune or in touch with the God within, that's very powerful. Not powerful, not so much in a physical way, but powerful in the way of living your life, your life's purpose. And as you honor your life's purpose, I can't think of anything in us that would be closer to our God within. We're celebrating God when we live our life's purpose. And when you mentioned Marianne Williamson, it brought to mind that one time I went to a seminar in Long Beach. Was Elizabeth Kubler-Ross who was an honorary bishop in our society, was going to be speaking. But when I got there, she didn't make it because her house had burned down, and so Marianne Williamson took her place. And what the audience was bringing up was there's a lot of educators in the audience that a lot of preteen girls were suicidal. And the counselors at the school didn't have a clue what to do. So they asked Marianne Williamson, whose background was Judaism, she gave them this information. She said, go to a church or a temple and kneel before Mother Mary and ask her help. And when I heard that, I went up to Marianne Williamson after her talk and invited her to become a member of our society, because in heart she is a member of our society. She's living her God likeness. Mm-hmm. That's wonderful.
Wow. Very, very powerful. And I have the same with connection with Marianne Williamson. Her in my early journey, A Return to Love was one of the first books, if not the first spiritual book that I read. And that was when I had my own awakening as to that the information I was reading from her was not new. It felt like I knew it, but I was being reawakened to the information that I already knew. And it was confounding to me because I thought, well, how could I possibly know this information? But yet it felt very, it just felt like I knew it already. So that was the beginning of that journey there. But to answer your question, now that I see what you were looking at on the darker side about I'm chuckling because I hadn't seen this before. So this is rather cute. She is the silence and the thunder. So to relate to that, I would say I learned or had to unlearn from my upbringing to be quiet, to talk less, to just be present. Was probably one of the biggest lessons, and character. In the 12-step program, they talk about character defects, and I guess one of mine would have been because of my operating system at the time was one of I had low self-esteem, was wanting to be heard and fighting to be heard, and letting that go was just so freeing to just know that I don't have to prove to anyone anything by my words. And so with regard to the darker side, I don't refer to that as dark meaning negative, the yin and the yang. So that would be, that balanced part is being able to be quiet in the face of someone who is maybe very offensive, kind of like a bully, and having the inner strength to know that I don't have to prove myself. I can just be quiet and sit with it, and which is not to infer that I would allow someone to abuse me. It's not the same thing. It's not fighting back, futile out of futility, and engaging in a war of words. And also, I have found that by listening, the answers come from the words that the person who's saying them says them. So I don't have to work very hard to come up with an answer because the answer is being revealed to me by actively listening to what the person is saying. And so there's power in that right there.
That's a great example. Thank you. Marvelous example. It reminds me of the Zen story about this pregnant woman was on a late night train, um, and there was an alcoholic, a drunk guy, that was literally abusing her. And there was an elderly couple sitting next to him, and the elderly man got up and intuitively he knew what was troubling the alcoholic. So he was able to enter into the consciousness of the alcoholic and explain to him that he understands. He understands that pain and suffering he was going through. And when he was able to meet with him at his inner pain, the pain dissipated and the man broke down in tears. So the listening part of it is wonderful, and then the intuitive part of it is something else. And then the thunder part of it is having the inner strength to not so much confront the person, but to enter a level of consciousness with that person so that they can understand the grief and suffering and move beyond it. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
I am finished with my questions. Does anyone else have a question for Caitlin? Because we have 20 minutes. Go get her.
Good morning, Caitlin. The activist in me kicks in when you talk. How did the Department of Peace go? What was the result of that?
It didn't come to fruition, but the Peace Alliance is the national organization. They're still active, but much like the Madonna Ministry, I think that they have waned quite a bit over the years since the late 1990s, early 2000s when they first started. So there's still an active legislation. Every couple of years, someone will sponsor a bill to create a cabinet level Department of Peace, but it has not actualized, and I think in large part because it really needed to happen at an even deeper grassroots level, meaning each state within schools really getting the young people involved. But anyway, it's still there, but it's not gone anywhere.
You know,
You
they
planted
did.
the seeds.
I think somewhere in South America, South America, I think they created a university.
Costa Rica, I believe it is.
Yeah, Costa Rica for
Mhm.
peace. I knew some of those people at the time. And here's a reminder for everybody.
It
I
froze.
think he froze.
Is us on an edge? While he comes back into the picture, I'd like to ask a question too, Kate, because I basically have been relying on your permaculture background to understand what the possibilities are for us to get this piece of land underway. So I'd really love to establish that as a mission for us to help build back what this ministry has as an asset and can put back into place. But Charlie's back, so we can talk to him too. All right, I guess he's still frozen.
No,
Nope,
he's
there he goes.
I got kind of lost there with
You were
my
frozen.
frozen computer.
Yeah.
But I just want to finish that the person that was Assistant Secretary General of the UN was the one that read Brothers of the Grape and realized that was one of the first um, books or narratives written on the subject of peace. And so that is a basic literature for our ministry.
It's amazing. Yeah, it's amazing that when we listen to one another here, we all have had the same yearning to be part of something that would help everybody. And that's what the Madonna ministry does. Maybe we don't see it all in my ways, but we may go into a place and something happens to somebody, or we start talking to them and they start, quieting down or whatever. And our journeys have all brought us to this. And we've all had our own backgrounds. We've had our own journeys. We've had everything in that. But all of a sudden, we heard this, we felt this, and the door opened, and here we are, the Madonna Ministry. And each one of us, as we go along our own journey, bring that out there and talk about that and be that. And I think that's the whole thing, being it. That's what draws people. Yeah. So anyway, that's my feeling. Thank you.
Yeah, and thank you, Shirley. The other thing I want to let you remind everybody of, the thing that inspired or mentored Marianne Williamson was A Course of Miracles. And if you're familiar with that, and it also inspired Jerry Jampolsky and others too. So books can be inspirational. So God's everywhere, and we can find it within ourselves and recognize it in other places.
To get back to where did the ministry go? The wonderful thing I feel about this ministry is we support people, and when they decide that they want to do their own thing, like Jenny has gone back to her Wild Women weekends, we support that. We don't say, "Oh no, you can't leave us. We need you." We're not grasping people, at least our piece of it. I can't speak for the other piece. So I think that's why we stay small. We also don't ordain people on the spur of the moment. We check things out. Do we make mistakes? Yes, we do. But that's what makes us human. But I think in my heart, and the discussions I've had with Arnold on the other side, is we're not meant to be humongous right now. That's in the future. But right now, we need a small core of people who are willing to support the negative side of the world and support each other, because we are all light beings, every one of us. And even light beings need support. And Charlie and Shirley have been our big main support through the years. The first meeting I went to, the first conference I went to, Charlie walked up to me and he talked to me for 2 hours, and I had no idea who he was or how important he was. He was just, "Hey, I'm Charlie. Who are you?" And I was flabbergasted. And through that talk, I had the aha moment of, "Oh, I finally found my tribe. I finally found," because I too always wanted to be a priest and was told, "No, you're a girl. You can't do that." Well, guess what, fellas? I'm not only a priest, I'm a bishop now. Um, but it was like, oh, yes, these people are people I've been searching for all my life. But was I mature enough to accept who they were then? I was then, but before then, no. There's a lot of stuff going on in my life too. So I see us as small but powerful. And powerful, I mean, and the example I'm going to use is my friend Cheryl. I really believe, and she really believes, without all the prayers that were sent to her, she would not be healed of cancer today. A year ago, she was standing on death's door when they gave her that diagnosis. And as a nurse 50 years ago, a diagnosis of acute leukemia, you were dead in 40 days. Here she is a year later. She's had a bone marrow transplant, which was not from her family, but worked. But she really feels that it is the prayerful work that we did that helped her. And now she can go back to her life, and she's a cranial sacral therapist with some very special gifts. She can go back to giving her gifts to others with a better appreciation of the word prayer or energy, because a lot of us don't use the word prayer, and I understand that. So just that energy, that positive energy that we send out to people, and we don't always send it to anybody specific. I mean, I know Shirley just flings it out there every once in a while, and wherever we take her, she's got something to give somebody. She's amazing. My husband just loves taking her out to dinner because we never know what's going to come out while she's trying to transition out the door. So I see that that is our power. That is our gift that we give to the world. And whether they ask for it or not, it doesn't matter. It's what we do best is give our positive energy to whomever and whatever is in our path. And I think a lot of people actually can recognize us as light workers because think about how many times serendipity happens and somebody says to you, what do you know about this? And you get a chance to tell people about your Reiki or your healing or your ministry. Um, because that's the universe working with us, sending us those who need us. And they might only need us for 20 minutes, and that's okay. They also, like Cheryl, might need us for a year, and that's okay too. So that's where the ministry is, our half of the ministry is now. And we're grateful that Charlie and Shirley took our side, so to speak, and stayed with us because without their support and their encouragement, I don't think we would be doing what we're doing today. The two of them were such a foundation for me and for Sally because we came into the ministry about the same time. Sally dragged me kicking and screaming. And then we dragged Laura and then we dragged Cindy. And yeah, I mean, and Laura has been instrumental in bringing many people in because she loves to talk about what she does and she talks to everybody. And somebody will say, gee, that sounds like something I'd like to do. How do I get into that? And that's how Olivia came today. She said, I'm looking for something different. I said, well, come on, try the ministry. Whether she stays or not is fine. She's met us now. And that's the thing, to get people to meet us wherever we are, whatever we do. So thank you all. And hi, Carrie. I didn't see you come in. So that's the best answer I can come up with for where's the ministry.
That's a great answer. And before we leave, I'd like to say, in honor of St. Patrick's Day, let's invite Irish people into our ministry.
I'm here. Kate's here.
We're all Irish today.
Right. Yeah. Everybody's Irish on St.
Even the
Patrick's Day.
Swiss.
Got my corned beef cooking in the kitchen. But yes, it's yeah, we are.
I'd like to say to Caitlin, I like the idea of mentorship. I think that's really cool. And it takes many different forms. Like for me, I've been in 12-step programs for 40 plus years, and everyone is always encouraged to have a sponsor, which I think is the same thing as a mentor, a sponsor, just somebody that when you have questions or when you're down or when you just need somebody to listen, I think that's important to have somebody like that in your life. I know I've had many people like that in my life, and I think that's really important.
Mhm.
And Shirley did a lot of mentoring when Sally and I came in.
Mhm.
She was mentoring both of us through our bishop crisis. And she almost died on us, and we yelled at her, so she came back and stayed. Um, but Shirley has been the most powerful force in my life as far as mentorship, because I know I can go to Shirley and tell her anything, or I can cry, or I can laugh, or whatever, and she just takes me as I am. And to me, that's what a mentor is for. And I think maybe we need to start getting mentors again. Uh, so maybe the next marketing meeting we can talk about that, Miss Nikki, and see who would like to volunteer, particularly the bishops, to mentor the new people. Because I remember being totally lost when I became a minister. And again, if I didn't have Shirley and Sally and Red Basket to talk to, I don't know whether I would have stayed. So yeah, everybody, that's a great idea, buddy system, whatever we want to call it. So maybe we could put that on the agenda, and hopefully I can make it to that meeting and won't have a doctor's appointment. Um, so that's a great suggestion. I thank you, and I thank you for sharing yourself with us today.